leading this charge?
I will.
Okay,
I'll be glad to.
gotcha.
So we had several calendar meetings with the calendar committee. Sent out 2 surveys to staff to get input on the calendar for next school year. And the calendar that we've included is the calendar that everybody was the most happy with. Of course, you're not going to make everybody happy, so I said the most happy with. So that's the calendar that we would recommend as a representative of that committee.
Is this similar? I don't remember what day school started this year. Is it very similar? Is it earlier?
It's pretty similar. I think we started on Thursday. This starts on a Wednesday.
Start dates.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, probably some of the differences that you might note, Christmas break is a little bit longer. The makeup days are built in the calendar, so we can actually use President's Day. We can use Good Friday. We can use 2 days in spring break. And I know it's always difficult when you take out a spring break, but if you at least inform people the year ahead of time that those 2 days are possible days, then they can plan accordingly. So I think the committee and the teachers feel like that if we can get as much instruction in before MAP and EOC testing and all those things, it's more beneficial for the students. So we built those days in. So.
Talking about the snow days, what is it? You miss so many and then you don't have to make up any at all? I was hearing something about that.
So next year it's going to change because there's a new law that goes into effect that's based on hours and not days. Right now it's based on days.
Okay.
So you have to essentially mark the first 6 snow days on the calendar. When you miss, and it's for inclement weather. So we had a day that was due to a water main break. That day you have to make up no matter what. So that one, you take that one off the table. So it's only inclement weather is the way the law is written. So we missed. You missed 7 days. On the 8th day, it's a pardoned day, I guess. Then the 9th
The
day.
8th day is the pardon day.
Right.
Okay,
Make sure I'm
gotcha.
right.
What do we have so far?
Then the 9th day you make it up. Then the 10th day is pardoned again until it gets to a total of 10 days made up, and then after that, then they're free essentially.
How many have we had?
Yeah. Where are we at now?
We have had 8 days of inclement weather and 1 day of water main break.
And who knows?
I'm just
what
laughing.
happens.
Who
I'm
knows
like,
what
so we
tomorrow's
need 2
gonna bring.
more days and then we don't have to make up any. Is that?
No,
No,
it's
that's
10
not-
days
okay.
made up.
Okay,
so
10 made up. Okay.
It's actually, yeah.
So we're going to be
So we're
going
making
to
up
school until
7
the
right
4th
now.
of July,
Right.
basically.
No, there is an end point. June 5th, I
5th.
think is something like that. June 5th with teachers, June 4th with kids is the last possible day. And there has been some, there's been some concern about that, of course, when you start getting into June because there's not grade areas on the calendar. However, you have to make those days up. The contracted days are based on a number of days, and so there's some people freaking out about that.
So are we going to May 30th right now?
Correct.
That is correct.
Yes.
How many are on
We
here?
have 9 days total, and we had
6?
8 weddings.
Yep.
Some of them are on the gray of the word draft or over the gray of
Well, the new is different because, like he said, it's hours instead of.
So you'll see a gray day on February 17th, a gray day on March 16th and 17th, a gray day on April 10th, a gray day on May 18th and 19th. Those are the gray days.
So that means
So 6.
it's going to be a no school day, but it could be a day that
Used
we
as a
make
makeup
use
day.
A makeup day.
And we've
Okay.
put the order of the makeup days on the calendar too.
And what that does is that keeps them from being all piled in at the end of the year.
Correct.
Which is what's happening this year.
Correct.
Okay. And there's really no way to go back and, like,
So-
the 17th of February, we couldn't have went back
Good
to
question.
this 18th and made up a snow
Good
day.
question. So, the board can amend the calendar, and I did ask the calendar committee if they would be in favor of amending the calendar to use spring break or Good Friday for an example. They were not in favor of that because they felt like people had already made their plans. They didn't want to go on something that was voted on and approved already. So, some schools do amend the calendar. That was not the committee's recommendation to amend the calendar. So. You obviously can't amend yesterday's date because
Right.
it was not enough notification. The school board is the only one that has the authority to make that decision. So.
Any other questions?
Well, speaking of that, is there any time frame in between, like now and the end of May, that we've got gray days this year that we could
No.
amend to? Okay.
That's why I was referring to the amendment. So those days are not grade currently. They're just days off. So we have a PD day the Thursday before Easter. Then we have Good Friday off, and we talked about the PD day, but the PD day is used. I mean, we've got some pretty important PD that includes writing component on that Thursday that involves a lot of teachers, some trauma informed training for some other staff members. So it's already planned. We didn't feel like we could recommend using that as a makeup day because there's no other PD day to get that necessary PD in. And then Good Friday and the days of spring break, the committee was not in favor of using those as makeup days for this current year.
All right. Do we need a motion, or do we just hang out for a couple?
No, it's in the, I'm sorry, it's in the agenda.
Gotcha.
as a approval.
Yeah, that I knew. I didn't know we
Right,
needed
yeah,
to
right now, we don't
call the
need a
hearing
motion
to a
or.
close, and then
Yeah, you can just
Okay.
close the hearing if there are no further questions.
if there are no further questions, we will close the hearing. And looks like it's 7:00. We're gonna roll right into the meeting. Okay. I am not hitting the gavel. We're gonna go ahead and call it to order. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Harrisonville Cass R9 School District is to provide excellence in education. Okay, we need to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we need to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Hold one moment, please.
There's a couple of items I would like taken off the consent agenda.
Okay.
Item D and item G.
D and what, I'm sorry?
G.
Well, when our system decides to come back up, I'll get those moved. I don't know why it's not.
So then we need to redo the
Yeah,
Motion.
I'll withdraw the motion and make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended when Susan gets caught up.
Where do you want me to move this? Teaching and learning.
Yeah, put them under 7. Oh, one's business though. G. I don't know. Yeah, put that under 9.
which it should be there.
Refresh this.
The little circular arrow just to the
Okay.
left of the. Yeah.
I don't think mine refreshed.
Let's see if it did.
Yeah, it's not doing it, I don't think.
I just wrote it in on mine.
Okay, I got my computer to reload, so let's try it again. We went to teaching, learning, public interest, and we went to
I think it did it this time.
Need to refresh.
I'm getting the other one. Hang on.
Oh,
I gotta move my ways.
sorry.
Magically predicting.
Would you? Mine is gone.
They're gone now.
Okay, hit something else too.
So is it snowing out there, or do we have a mixture of yuck?
Yeah, it comes tomorrow morning, I think.
So you still have a decision to.
You won't let us look out the window. No.
Okay, try again now and see if it's.
I heard we're supposed to
Better.
get more this weekend too.
It's a little bit ago, it looked like rain.
Is it going to be more
Looked
rain?
earlier, sure it was rain, so.
we can't do anything about it.
That's exactly right.
It appears to have worked.
Yep, mine does.
Used to be.
Yes, it did.
Okay, are we there?
Yes.
All right. If you would,
So I'll move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Hang on just 1 second.
Of course, now technically it's now. as
Okay, Tina.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Student recognition for the evening.
High school.
Cancel it so I can see.
That's right, okay.
Oh,
Recognize Mr.
Mark's going to talk about it.
Well, I'm just going to tell you that our two students of the month were Jill Bachman and Gage Weber. We asked them not to come this evening due to the weather, so we will introduce them and talk about them next month. But it was Jill Bachman and Gage Weber this month.
so you'll have 4 students then next
Four
month.
students,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Any audience delegations?
I don't know. Come in.
Okay. Band boosters will be here next month. Will we have 2?
I thought they were coming tonight, so I don't. Last I heard, they were coming tonight. So
Okay,
I don't know.
that's all right. We will go ahead and move on to the MSBA report.
Excuse me. A good part of the report from MSBA this month was talking about educators entering the teaching profession and leaving the teaching profession. They said, and this came from a report that was done in front of the Missouri State Board of Education on Missouri's current teacher workforce. Less people earning teacher certificates. The demand for teachers is increasing. Teachers are leaving profession due to family reasons, lack of administrative support, low salaries, and challenging work conditions. Keep in mind, I'm speaking for the state of Missouri, no districts in particular. Some of the strategies that they have identified for improving from MSBA are strong preparation and mentoring of teachers, comparable salaries, material supports, professional working conditions, and teacher leadership. Let's see. The teacher workforce in Missouri. Regarding teacher workforce in Missouri, the teacher quality has been consistently identified as most school-based factor in student achievement, which I think is important for us always to remember. Missouri is ranked 49 out of 50 in the country for average starting teacher salaries, and 39 out of 50 in overall teaching salaries. Of course, it doesn't give any information on the economic cost of living in the areas that it's where they've given that information. And then MSBA annual conference is September 26 to 29. And if any of our board members or administrative staff is interested in submitting a proposal, March 30th is the deadline.
Proposal for
To
sessions?
be a presenter.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Sorry.
Who is the conference?
The conference is September 26 to 29. March 30th if you want to present.
Yes, Doug, you can come up with a presentation for us to do.
Could only imagine what you would do.
I know.
Is that all you've got for us, Gina? we probably better turn this horse around quick.
Moving right along.
Cass County Community Health Foundation.
Good evening.
How are you, Kevin?
Hi, Kevin.
Good. I think it says Katie up there, but I'm obviously not
Clearly,
Katie.
Kevin.
Katie is our outreach coordinator, and she gets all these scheduled for us. I have the honor and privilege of serving on the board of trustees of Cass Community Health Foundation. And for those of you who don't know, we do really two things. We operate 2 dental clinics, one in Harrisonville and one in Belton. And I'm going to get into some of the numbers of the children we serve. And we provide scholarships. So I think we've sent this out. I will hand a couple of these out to the board secretary. But we have some flyers here that say free money. So we do have nursing and healthcare scholarships available. So if you'll make sure that the people that need those, we certainly want to help some kids get their education, because while Ms. Smith was talking about the shortage of educators, the healthcare industry has the same issues. So let's talk a little bit about what we did last year. And in 2018, you'll see in the handout I gave you, we saw 3,615 children. That is through 6,831 encounters. So many of those were seen multiple times. A statistic from our information that we collect that is staggering to me, that in Cass County, Missouri, of these United States, we still had 185 children in this county that were rampant caries. Rampant caries means that they had 7 or more untreated cavities in their head. It's staggering that we still are out there fighting so hard and still have those problems to solve. So let's go through your specific statistics and a little bit, because we're trying to do our presentations a little different. We're bringing it back to the school districts and specifically where we work with your children. And so you can see in the middle of the page, on the white page that I handed out that looks like this, you can see that the number of 811 screened so far in the 2018-19 school year. Now, I don't know if we're through screening or not, because, well, we've had, I think, as of last Thursday, we have 6 screenings that are being rescheduled. Something about snow days or something. So obviously we're all challenged with that, but we're trying to get those done. So if you go down to the second set of boxes, you'll see that this year we've only screened so far 811, and the breakdown is up there. We 153 in the Early Childhood Center, 328 in HES, 143 in McEwen, And then in the middle school is 187, for that total of 811. Of those, need for urgent care were 8. So still a pretty strong number. And that's urgent care. If you go to the second box, out of those 811, 171 of them needed care. So meaning that they had something that was not treated, that needed to be treated, that we were able to find. Now, some of those have their own dentist, and some of them need to go to our clinics. And for those of you who don't understand, Missouri Medicaid does not reimburse well for dental services. I saw this numbers that we spent like $2.3 million running our clinics last year. Reimbursement for that was $720,000. So it's staggering the amount of money that it takes to run those clinics, to have dentists and hygienists and to do all that we do, and get so little back in reimbursement. That's why we're doing it and not your local dentist. And that's why all of your support is so vital in what we do, with our walk coming up and raising money to help with those little mouths that we serve. And so those are kind of the numbers. Now, like I said, you can see in past years, last year we did, the 17-18 year we did 1,147 visits. I would imagine we're still doing some yet this year, so that number will be a little larger than the 811. We may not have got them scheduled yet. So on the backside, you see about our college scholarship program, and then and that tells you a little more about that. And obviously, we have a deadline on that of March 1st for those to get in, so that we can get them reviewed and to the committee to provide those scholarships. And then our 25th annual 5K for Health, and I want to thank Board Member Schimmelfinning for serving on that committee. He is helping us with that this year, and I have the privilege of chairing it. And so it's the first Saturday in May, so May 4th, and it's at Belton Regional Medical Center. As our 25th year, we are trying to get school districts more involved, and I know that we haven't heard from Harrisonville yet, and I know we're working on that, but we do have a dance groups from Belton and Ray Peck going to be there, and I'm sure that there's some talent from Harrisonville that will be trying to get there as well. Celebrating our 25th year of doing this, we want to, have a big event and get as many people involved as possible. So with that, I would entertain any questions tonight. I certainly appreciate your time, and I know that you have a lot bigger things to handle tonight, but
Of the 171 kids that needed care, do you have any way of knowing how, because you said some of them would go to the clinic, some would have their own dentist. Do you have any way of following up to know if they received the care?
we do a screening card at the schools, and we mark who needs care, and then it goes through the school nurses.
Okay.
We identify, with the screening process, we identify that, and then they take those back, and then I know that they work with those families. So because of confidentiality probably and other things, we're not able to know. But I know that your own staff have a very good idea.
Okay.
And Kevin, I know it goes through middle school. Is it not a service for high school age students?
It is, and we've done the high school in years past. Just not this year. And it may be one of those that we're still trying to do this year.
Yeah.
But yes, we've done the high school. I know, Jill, last year, high school, for the dental screening. No, we did it last year. So, absolutely. We are, something interesting happening is the building we're in, which is Dr. Price and Wheeler's offices. We've only used half of the building, and it is owned by the hospital, and the hospital's been good enough to allow us to have that space. But the other side of the building is going to now be occupied by the health department for their WIC program, which is the same group of people that we're serving. And we found, I don't know if it's necessarily a loophole or just the ability to do it, but we found that we can now, 21s are cut off. Medicaid will not pay or will not allow us to treat above 21 unless it's a pregnant mother.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be opening those services to pregnant mothers as well as their children. So hopefully we can get a few more people taken care of.
Is the 21 cut off through the age of 21 or to the age of 21? Do you know?
Probably two.
Two.
Two?
So sadly enough, for adults, the Medicaid program provides nothing. Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much for your
Thank you.
support.
Thank you
and
very
help.
much, Kevin.
Thank you. And you're welcome to stay for this excitement.
Go get out of this.
Be careful going home.
See ya.
Okay. Moody report.
So, just this month I've included, this is a monthly report that comes to us through our former financial services provider. So James Moody was the budget director for Governor Ashcroft. So he's had some experience, obviously, providing some data on the current economic state of Missouri. So this is just a report that he generates every month. I thought I'd share that with you, and you can read through that PowerPoint presentation that he gives. But you can see there's some dire concern over the status of returns and the current trend for the economy in the state of Missouri. And so I just wanted to share that information with you. It's just a FYI kind of thing, but that's one of the things that we use, and we're starting to make predictions and budgeting and all those things. So.
If you haven't had a chance to read it, if you didn't get a chance when it came out, you ought to, but plan on a long sleepless night, because if there's if this guy is 75% accurate, things aren't as rosy as they seem.
Yeah, that consensus revenue piece is a real. There's been fights over the consensus revenue. That's where they start. You always start the budgeting process with the revenue piece, and they always. So there's a meeting where the consensus revenue is determined before they go into general session, and generally if they overestimate on the consensus revenue, that's a bad sign, because then that means we're going to have money in June that doesn't come to us, so that we think is coming to us.
Okay.
Thank you for including that.
Yeah.
It was good. It's a good perspective that I hadn't had before.
Well, and it does let you, you think everything with the numbers that you get and with, everything that's in front of us, you think, yeah, we're on the upside, but
A lot bigger picture than that.
there is, yeah. Okay, moving on to the CCC fire training tower proposal.
Thank you, guys. We wanted to give you plenty of time to absorb all the information. This is something we've been working on for over 4 years down at the CCC. We've tried to involve industry partners, just all kinds of people through the years, and a lot of things have backfired on us, and it's getting more and more challenging for us to get our fire students into these training facilities. And as you know, we've got kids that have to do up to 8 certification tests for fire to be able to get certified as firefighters, and we do send them out of high school as certified firefighters. But we've struggled with finding places to take them through the years, and it's gotten worse because of some state changes to what is allowable and what's not for testing and certification. We have tried to partner with some other facilities. We end up getting kicked out at the last minute because other fire departments need them, and we're kind of low man on the priority totem pole. And it's really hard when you're trying to get through students 8 different levels of certification, and you are at the whim of somebody else. When you're trying to schedule 10 sending schools to get into these testings, last year we ran into doing it on Saturdays, and it was people's proms and all that, and it's like, you went to school for a whole year for this, and this is our one shot because we don't have access to a tower. So I'm sorry, you either miss your prom or you come and do this. So we, like I said, have been noticed when Gina was there. I started working with our former fire chief, trying to get the ball rolling then. So I've given you basically 4 years of what we've looked into and all. I know it's a lot to consider, and so we're not asking for a vote or anything right now. We want to give you guys time to really think about it and get your questions that you have in order. One of the things about it, it is a training tower. It's not just a burn tower. It's something we would use all year through for training. The ladder drills that we're sticking them up all over the CCC right now and all that kind of thing, the climbing on the roof, all those things, be so much better in an appropriate facility for that kind of thing. So I don't want you to just think of it as, well, how many burns do you do and how often would that be used? It would be used year round. And not only by our secondary students, but also we have post-secondary, and I'll just throw a little shout out there. They finished their testing this Saturday, and all of our adults from the community that we've offered this service to passed.
That's great.
So we have a whole bunch more firefighters out there. So right now, I don't know if you want to ask me any questions now or if you just want to consider this information. We planned on coming back in about 2 months or so. One of the final pieces we have to make sure we have in place, the money that we would want to use for this isn't a matching grant. This isn't something the district would have to come up with any money for. There was a brand new grant put out last year, the CTE Base and Performance Grant. It's 2 separate pieces. The base side is used for salary reimbursement. The performance side is supposed to be used for CTE equipment and things that, it's tough to come by because they're usually a lot of dollars for the big items that we need. And this was not something that would typically be used. The grant money would be used for building. They don't do that. But I talked to Andy Martin, who is the head of finance down there at Dusty for us, and he got, not only did I get his blessing, I also got Dr. Henningson's, who's, second in command. So got his blessing that he saw that there was a great need for this, and he thought this would be a very appropriate use of the money. So with that blessing, I've tried to do all my homework before I bothered you guys with it. I've gotten the city out there to take a look at it. We've got their blessing for it. They told me it was going to be a piece of cake to put it there.
That's amazing.
I know. And so all the pieces have fallen into place to the point where I feel like I was ready to share with you guys, okay, we think we can really do this now. So I'd love for you to think about it, get all your questions together, and I'll come back with my fire chief and my students, and we'll be here to answer anything.
What's the average size of your program?
36 students a year.
And that's
just
school
the
age.
secondary.
What about
the adults? We usually do a fall class and and a spring class.
And what's the size of that?
Typically around 10 to 12.
Okay.
And is there a fire hydrant close to this location that you're proposing?
It's actually a little further away. We could have had the city's blessing to put it right by that fire hydrant, but with the homes right over there, we wanted to be considerate and not freak out the people who were living right on the other side, although they said it would be fine for us to do it. We are not going to have flames shooting out of it or anything like that. But we're actually going to put it, if we get to do this, in the, what would that be, northwest corner?
Right.
There. And we have talked about having to drag a lot of fire hose or possibly, working with the city and some other people to see what they could do about moving that for us. But we're willing to drag the hose if we have to.
I was going to say, I think it'd be fairly expensive to move because it'd be on us. The city, I don't believe, would participate in that.
My fire chief was looking into some things. He thought
Was
he
he?
might be
Good.
able to pull some strings.
Great.
So we'll see.
Great.
We'll see. But like I said, we're willing to drag hose if we have to. We're great with that.
Is it something that we could turn into a money-making proposition? I know other
I'm glad you
places
asked that because I don't
charge.
think I said much about that in there. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. So South Metro up in Raymore was going to consider charging us $1,200 per day that we had to go up there and use that. That's pretty pricey. One of the things we have to do is with all the testing that we have is we have to pay evaluators to come in from these other fire districts, and we have talked with them in some of our advisory committee meetings about maybe working a trade where instead of paying for their services, maybe we're giving them some service at our fire tower, and it won't hurt it any. It's not going to ruin it for student use or anything like that. So we would be able to save money as a school for long term by not having to pay those evaluators every time they come out. If we've got somebody who's not evaluating for us, then yes, we can look into, we'd have to talk with Kathy and some other people to figure out how do we charge as a school to use our facility. That's over my head, but we'd be happy to look into that as well.
You've done a really nice job putting this together, and one of the things I wanted to say is that it's really nice to be able to offer educational services and things to this extent for students when it doesn't cost the district.
Right.
And to, and to have that option and to be able to bring it to the board, that's a great thing. One of the questions that I did have for you, and Paul had told us this earlier, that you were looking into the liability insurance. So I'm assuming that when you bring it to us for a vote, you'll have all of that information, right?
Right, because when I've checked with, we're not like blazing trails here. We're actually behind the scenes when it comes to career centers in the state of Missouri that have fire programs. Most of them have fire towers. And so I've reached out to them to find out what they were doing in that regard. And it's a different system. It was all included under the district. There was no breakout. It didn't cost, a separate amount to add that on. Plus, Fort Osage has had theirs for 20 years. So when I asked Mike about it, he was like, yeah, I don't know. They just, and they never have problems with it. It doesn't create more drama for the district or anything like that. So I don't know for sure because Kathy's looking into what that's going to look like for us because since we're not the same system as them, I couldn't have that answer for you yet.
Is the Fort Osage one different than the one you're proposing? Is it?
Yes, ours is not as nice as theirs. Okay. We're not bleeding money that Fort Osage.
Nor is it as nice as Excelsior.
Yeah.
But it's not $85,000 either, right?
Theirs was
or 200,000. Yeah.
Excelsior Springs.
But these are good, and there are fire stations and fire districts that are using
right.
the same
I went out
type,
to Dolan, West Dolan, talked with them. I took pictures. I think I added one picture in there for you guys to take a look at. Talked with their fire chief and some of their firefighters, and went out there again with Bill, our fire instructor. Talked about what he liked about it, what he might want to tweak about it, and he talked with then the people who are designing it, would be designing it. We know we'd have to put it out for open bid should we get your blessing. But I can tell you there's not going to be anybody else that touches this because, like I said, I've been working on this for 4 years, and I can't believe that we finally have somebody that can provide this for us at a price that we can make this work.
And if I remember you saying in some of your research, these type of container structures can be added onto and reconfigured as well, right? Throughout the years if there's a different need.
Yep. And if we pop a weld, we've got welders right there to fix them. So it's all good.
How long are they scheduled to last? I was looking through that.
With it being a newer thing, using these containers like this, they don't anticipate. I mean, they feel like these are pretty rugged. We're not putting any kind of gas system into it. We're not doing, there's a special kind of paint that goes on the inside. We might have to repaint it every now and then.
Just looking at the residual cost.
Yeah, it shouldn't be much. It's something I could pull out of Perkins or something, I'm sure, if I had to help support the structure.
Well, and then another thing, too, that is nice about it, I just might mention, is that you don't have the cost of transporting kids to another town to use. So.
Well, and we took them all the way up to Independence one day and got kicked out, so we took the kids out of school for a day to run them up to Independence to get to the fire tower and ended up having to bring them back home with nothing because we're low man on the totem pole. The fire districts take priority, and with the changes at the state level of what is allowed, what has to be there for them to be able to test now, that changed this last year. And so some of the older structures don't meet those guidelines. And for them to rebuild, they're kind of like, oh gosh, we weren't expecting to have to do that. So it's more of a struggle for us even more now than it has been in the past. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Jeanette.
All right, I'll look forward to talking to you in a couple months.
Come on up.
Yeah, come on up.
He jumped up here. Hey, I put something in the board minutes, but I also thought I'd give you a visual of a possible junior high schedule versus a middle school schedule. This is very rough, so disregard the names. It doesn't really, these are just placeholders. Give you an idea of what we're talking about. This year, talking with Mr. Menching, we've talked about the junior high model versus the middle school model, which we've had. And just a real brief history, we've had a middle school model off and on since about '94. Todd White brought it along back when he was a principal there, I think 93, 94, somewhere around there. It was 93. And then off and on it kind of ebbed and flowed. When I came to the building in 2006, we were just having it in 6th grade, 7th and 8th graders in a junior high model. And so the basic difference between junior high and middle school is middle school you have teams, core teachers are on a group of 4. They have 2 plan times. One is a team time, one is their own personal plan time. They teach 4 hours out of the day. A junior high model where there would be no teams based on interdisciplinary. we would team in a disciplinary model. So all the comm arts teachers will be on a team, all the math teachers will be on a team. The big difference there is when they do meet, they'll have actual academic things to talk about versus behavioral things. So the difference was in middle school is focus on behavior, junior high models focus on academics. Also, the staffing is a little bit more drastic in middle school. For example, we have 6 math teachers right now teaching 24 sections of math. In a junior high model, we would have 36 sections of math. So you can see we'd gain 12 sections. So if we lost a math teacher, which we're anticipating that we're going to, we would still just drop down to 30 sections. It would still give us a class ratio about 17-1, where now we're about 24-1. In fact, our algebra classes are about 28-30-1. Upper level classes like that are, but artificially raises your numbers of kids in the classroom. So we would drastically lower our numbers, even if we lost a core teacher, which we're anticipating doing in comm arts and math. Comm arts because of non-renewal, and resignation in math because they're moving to another city. So the folks would switch from a behavioral setting to an academic setting, and our collaboration would be the biggest advantage. Also, our numbers would go down and help us out with, not that this is the most important thing, but finances also would be an issue. We wouldn't need 6 teachers in a core area. We have 2 tech teachers right now. When one retires, we probably will not replace that other tech teacher and incorporate that into one class. So, and our numbers right now in some of our expo classes are 8-1, 10-1, and so this would also help them because we would go to semester classes instead of quarter classes for them. So there's a lot of advantages on that side. The disadvantage is it's a tradition that's been going on since about 2008. And a lot of families come in, they think, hey, I'm on the Flying Monkeys. I want my kids to be on the Flying Monkeys, even though I tell them that none of the Flying Monkeys teachers are even there. It doesn't matter. It's just the name recognition, so that would be an issue. Jill is helping me with potential rollout, but we'll be having some meetings in March if this would be passed. So.
What other schools in the area have our model now versus the junior high model, or is everybody the junior high model?
Everybody switched. We're one of the last very few that have a full middle school model. I know the bigger schools have all gone away from it. The ones in our conference, we talked in my last MRVC principal meeting. I believe Green Valley and Odessa has a partial one. Green Valley still has one somewhat, and although Oak Grove's gone away from it, P Hill, Warrensburg, and Excelsior Springs have all started to go away from it. I know Warrensburg for sure has not Green Valley. Oak Grove definitely has, and P Hill has, but Excelsior is talking about going away from that. They still have it, but they can't afford to keep it that way, so they're looking to switch because they are growing. Also, see, that's one of the problems too. Is if we do grow, like we have a large 7th grade class. Our 7th grade class numbers are about 27-1 right now, which is quite a few in a classroom. And it doesn't need to be that large, so that's one of the things. Also, we're spending a lot of time outside of class doing some support classes in RTI, where with our extra sections we can create RTI situations in the schedule itself, reducing the amount of transitions students have during the day. So we would go from, right now we have about 9 transitions going from class to class, lunch and things like that, 9 to 10. We'd go down from 9 to 10 to about 6 to 7. And any transition period, if you know anything about middle school, is always, that's where most of our problems happen. So you would reduce that by about 25%.
Increase the length of class.
Yeah, our class size, or class number, or time, right now we're at 48 minutes. We'd probably go to, depending on start and stop time, I'm working with Mr. Eggers on that, we could probably go to about 58 minutes. So we'd gain about 10 minutes extra time.
Is there any, because I don't know too much about this, Liberty, I don't know if they still do, and they're not in our conference, but they used to have one of each. Thought that was interesting in one school district.
They do not anymore.
Oh, they don't
They've
anymore.
gone down to junior high model and all
Both
their
junior highs.
middle school or their junior highs. They call them middle school still because they have 6th graders there.
Oh, okay.
So they still kind of add
It's just
that.
a different form. Okay.
Junior high tradition is the 7, 9.
What
or
about
7, 8.
when you, and I really, it was interesting to read, thank you, because you gave us a lot of good information, but when you talked about the behavioral focus versus academic focus, what about, I know you've given thought to this, but I just wanted to ask you, what about the, I would want to make sure that with that transition we don't miss the piece where we have that that behavioral or that I don't know, transition is not the right word, but especially when our sixth graders go from being in a classroom all day or however they are to a high school model. Basically, it's similar to high school, right? X number of hours.
Yeah, and
so will they have advisory or anything like that built in?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. Because right now, doing the numbers we did the last 3 months, we've really did a tight study on our data. What we're finding is about 10 to 15% of our kids need that time. And so what we're looking at is instead of taking the other 85% of the kids and just sitting them somewhere and focus on those 15% of the kids during that time, we're going to build that time into the classroom. So those kids who need that advisory time, we could build a class around that. I think some of it on there, like Miss Ori on there, we call it, I think, academic focus or something like that.
Academic lab.
Yeah, we would call that. That'd be our advisory for those kids.
How are those 15% identified?
Based on, we call them red flag behaviors, based on teacher notifications, attendance, grades, behavior, disciplinary notices. We used to call them at-risk kids, but we call them. We don't label them at-risk anymore.
I think all kids could use that, but that's just my personal opinion.
No, I understand that, but there's, like I said, once we saw that 85% of our kids are just sitting around in classrooms, it's just not being productive. So we thought, well, let's focus really intensely. Because when you have those kids in there too, those 15% sometimes get lost in that mix. So what we're saying, we can really focus on those 15% of those kids that really need that extra struggle time. And then we were adding more time into the classrooms to support enrichment for the kids who get it. So
my plead to you would be that if you put it into your regular classrooms, throughout the day for all kids, that there's definitely some good PD for teachers to know how to get that information to you know what I'm trying to say, so that they know how to work with kids, to give them some of that career planning and getting along with one another and leadership and all those types of things that they get. Sometimes it ends up, sometimes behavioral leads to that, but sometimes that leads to less behavioral issues. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we really feel like we underutilized our counselors this year, and that was one of the pieces that we wanted to see. Since the teachers would not be able to pick that up, but the counselors could pick up that area where they do some classroom teaching to those advisory kids. Also, we're messing around. We haven't got the okay on this, but like the high school gets early out on Thursday, we were trying to incorporate that into our schedule, and then also maybe provide some advisory time during that schedule also, and then we could match up with the high school in some of our collaboration. So that was just an extra bonus. We haven't got that. I mean, this has been coming at us fast and furious because of the teachers that are leaving, and we didn't want to. Hey, let's do it. And then my teachers are like, you know what? If we're going to go to it next year anyway, let's just do it. And so there's been a lot of positive feedback on it so far.
Thanks, Chris.
I like the ratio of students to teacher, too. I mean, as a teacher, you can probably teach better with the fewer kids you have in the classroom.
Yeah,
there's less distractions.
And with more time in class, too, it really, I mean, those are two benefits that we're
that is a
missing
big
right
benefit,
now,
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Can I have
very
those back? Just, I don't want
Don't want them leaking out.
No, just with the names on them.
It was helpful, though.
Because we're going to make some other changes. Those are just plain old.
Did you snap a picture as we did it? Yeah. Shred them.
I got a picture. It's already on Facebook. So.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, ongoing maintenance plans.
Attached is definitely a working project document, so not finalized in any way. We have Buddy Freeman and I have done our walkthroughs with the principals, and we're just starting to make our kind of plans for summer projects that are kind of outside the realm. One of the snow days, Mr. Menching and I got together and talked, and I shared this and shared it with Kathy as we look at capital project stuff, and so he wanted to include that in here. But definitely want to say it is a working document, not a final document in any way. Usually in March we'll try to bring to you kind of a list once we get with the budget of what we want to do with our bigger projects. But we do kind of keep track of the Hollis and Miller plan and go through and look through some of those things and what can we kind of chip away at off of that. There's a lot of big numbers on there also. but what can we kind of get done? And then also just on the minor end of this summer, as of right now, the plan is to hire a paint crew to continue doing the work that we've been able to do. I think they've spruced up a lot of things, and paint's pretty cheap to make some things look nice. So, but there's some bigger things on there. We've started an asphalt plan, so we have a little bit better idea of what we actually have to repair and replace, and or mill, and or crack seal, versus just needs work, that type of thing. So we're going and specifying that. So we'll have some of those things we'll try to get worked in besides what we're going to do this spring, as well as a few concrete spalding areas that are kind of where it kind of looks like a spider web of concrete, fixing some of those patches. A lot of that's areas that we look at for safety. So a couple big ticket items we don't have a number on there is looking at the drainage issue at the west side of the middle school, where water runs down into a very small drain and has flooded our floor, which was new, replaced last year, VCT tile, and has gotten into the gym, which was refinished a couple years ago. So those are some bigger projects that we need to kind of look at. As well as I think I showed on a tour at the stadium, on top of that wall on the south end of the stadium, we kind of have a plan of how we can cut into that and put a drain and relieve some water pressure there without doing major work. And we do also have quotes for mud jacking already that underneath the stadium that will bring some of that up a little bit, and those came in much more reasonable than what we thought. So questions?
Can you talk to me about the fire suppression upgrades? I see several of those listed, and
those are listed
thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I think it's $6,000 total for all of our buildings. One building has like 4,000, one has some smaller, and then a couple hundred. I'm not a fire suppression specialist, and our fire person probably would be able to talk to that. But a few years back, I won't even say many, they changed the requirements for what that fire suppression system is supposed to be, and we are outdated, and that is not there. So with the new system, if there was a fire and that went off, we'd clean up and probably have school the next day. With the current system, we're going to be out for a long time because we're not going to be cooking in that cafeteria for a long time. That's the easiest way of what I've read on it. It's just it's older. If it goes bad, we can't find the parts to replace it and all that kind of stuff. So this comes from Cintas, does our fire maintenance, come through and inspections and stuff. And so it's been a recommendation of theirs for a few years and has, I think, been overlooked. And
are you talking about a sprinkler system? I mean,
yeah,
what?
Yep. It'll be a sprinkler system in the kitchen. Over grease, grease fire. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's just in one area of each building.
Just the kitchen. Yeah.
All right.
And this isn't anything, Kathy. Maybe you can answer that we need to bid out or find another company that.
Well, they currently do all our fire inspections.
Okay.
Cintas does.
It doesn't reach the bid limits anyways.
No.
I don't think so.
It would be. I mean, potentially it could be a quote.
It could be a quote, but that's
Yeah.
the company that does everything. So I think we would be running into an issue of them, whoever coming in, taking. I mean, we're going to have. I'd rather the person that inspects it does the work versus somebody else doing the work. And now somebody that inspects it and says they didn't do the right work or whatever.
Right.
So
I think my thought is I've been looking at the budget, and the Cintas cost is rising over what it was before we had Cintas. And I'm wondering if we need to start looking for another company overall for our fire needs.
Okay.
That's my point.
So you're saying between Campbell and Cintas, you've seen I haven't. But it's probably time that we do a bid.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Bid out yearly services.
Because all of a sudden now we're adding more stuff to it. I understand it needs to be done, but we just spent $5 or $6 grand for them to come in and do inspections. So it's bothering me.
Okay. One question I had, Jason, is you talked about the asphalt plan and a lot of buildings needing that. I see it on 2. So is that like a revolving plan, or because I just see it on McEwen and Wildcat Academy? Or you've got
in
it
the
here
high
for
school,
next year.
high school.
Oh, is it high school too?
Yeah, and it might not all be in here because that asphalt plan's not in here.
Oh,
Like I
yeah,
said, this
high
is a
school,
work
yeah.
in progress. Working on actually the asphalt bid right now. We have the crack sealing is going to take place this spring as soon as weather, and we can use some of that money. Whatever money we don't have, what we allocated for this year, that money, along with hopefully some more money for next year in our capital, we'll put together the plan to hit those higher end asphalt needs. So what we had kind of just talked was needs fixed. And so now we're getting a little bit more specific. The high school I use for an example was, the high school parking lot's in bad shape. Well, the whole north end can be crack sealed and be all right, and the south end we can probably do we don't have to mill it down. There's some different things that we can
So
look
these
at.
three that you have in here are replacement. So you're wanting to do replacement first and then the fix later?
There are spots, the repair and replace, there's spots, actually specific spots. So within a drive, you won't repair and replace the whole thing, but if you have a section where the
some
cracks are
areas,
too
yeah.
bad or it's spidered out, you have to cut that out and repair and replace. So we'll go through and walk them through each one of those of what's going to, I'll use McEwen as an example. We'll have to repair and replace where we've cut in the water line. That'll have to be completely redone.
And then, thank you, because I don't know too much about asphalt.
I'm learning.
The other thing is the Career Center is one of our oldest buildings. There's only paint in a bathroom and paint in a classroom. So, does that mean that there are no other issues there, or?
It got quite a bit of love last year. That's how I guess put that. There are still some electrical needs that are taken care of, and most of the things that we've talked about there are some maintenance needs that are going to be ongoing, hopefully working on some stuff this spring. So regular maintenance, our custodians are going to spend quite a bit of time with our coil cleaning in our HVAC units and stuff this summer, and some things that have not been done for a while. So Jeanette and I we walk through, and we have the needs. There's some very high-end needs there too that aren't going to happen for a while.
I know there were some add-on, so the HVAC is kind of all, and I don't know, and then the south end of the building was starting to, I'm sure that's on your radar, right?
Correct. There's just, that's not a,
well, and
here.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about, because I noticed like mud jacking at the, anyway, there were just some things that I remember. I wondered if you were on your radar. So, thank you.
I had a question about the gym floor at McEwen for refinishing it. Wasn't it just installed?
Yeah, that'll be a yearly thing that we
Every year?
It's a polish and refinish. That had kind of been neglected too in years past, and our gym floors were not in the best of shape. So typically most schools,
Even a brand new one, you have to do
it's
stuff.
a yearly finish. Yep.
Wow.
It's like waxing your.
It's like just VCT, anything else. So.
Okay. My other question was about lighting at the middle school. You say exterior lighting. Where exactly would that be?
I think you brought that up at the top of those
I just
steps
wanted to
over
find
there.
out where that would be.
Buddy and I one night drove around together and looked at all of our buildings and made kind of a lighting plan also of some dark spots. And so that is one that we hope to put one at the top of the steps as you're coming down onto whatever street that is into that parking lot.
I don't
so
know that little
there's periodically there's lights out. We're putting a new light also on the east side of the building at the high school that will blow down kind of into the parking lot and the exit area. We have the light. We're just waiting now on weather. And we have two lights out in that parking lot right now. So it's dark. The truck can't get over in the curb and into the mud and the snow. We have a contractor come do that. So sometimes we have to wait on those. And we're also looking at just the possibility, it's probably not on here, but just ongoing of all of our soffit lights, trying to get onto sensors, because we have soffit lights on and off and all kinds of throughout the whole district. So just trying to, if we can put a sensor on that so it's not running all day long and it's coming on and off.
That'd be good.
So.
Thank you.
Another big dark spot I'll just mention is at McEwen. If you've ever come into McEwen at night, as you come into that drive, it's really dark in the bottom there, and there's an extra light pole in the bus loop that is there is not on right now and is not needed because there's a light on the building that lights that whole area up. So we're going to move that light. We won't have to buy a pole. We'll have to probably put a concrete and we'll have to get electric to it. But we're hopefully putting a light down in the bottom of that drive as you come up.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? Very good. Thank you, Jason.
Again, this is not a final, so don't come away. You said you're no. This is a working document for sure. So
Thank you.
Sorely needed.
it's how it's sorted in my head, so I can keep things straight.
Well, it's okay. I for one appreciate this kind of update. We've been, at least I felt like we've been flying blind for a number of years, and this is helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, donation acknowledgement.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Waking me up. I'm sorry. Per board policy KH, the administration hereby reports to the Board of Education the receipt of a donation to the Cass Career Center Fire Program from South Metro Fire of a positive pressure ventilation fan valued at roughly $2,000. District is extremely grateful for this
Yes,
donation.
thank you.
Very much.
Awesome. That's very good.
Under teaching, learning, and public interest, assessment and evaluation of district programs.
Through January, we've received $7.9 million in the general fund property tax revenue category and just over $2 million in the debt service. This is approximately 96% of the budgeted revenue. Year to date, tax collections exceed last year by about $220,000, and we had projected that. So we should be leveling off then between now and the end of the year. Prior year adjustment, I'll just remind you, it exceeds prior year finals or actuals by $117,000, which was that maximum insurance refund and E-rate disbursements. In the special revenue fund this year or this month, January, we did receive the high need fund reimbursement from last year. That's always based on the prior year. We received $486,000 there. So that's our special ed reimbursement. Expenditures again this month mirror the same period as last year. In fact, we're about $21,000 under the same 7-month period of last year. And our total cash and investments are $15.1 million. Questions?
Kathy, on that health reimbursement account, does it fluctuate very much? I mean, it doesn't get used?
That one account?
Yeah.
No, because that plan, we now are self-insured, or not, we're not self-insured, we are fully insured. That was the year, we had 4 years that we were under a modified cost plus plan, and that's when we had to set that account up. So we ran part of our reimbursements to employees through that account, and so they have now released that to us. So I will be closing that account.
Okay.
So, and it'll just go back into our general fund.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Moving on to the CSIP.
You got library and media.
Oh, so sorry.
The librarians were going to be here tonight, but I think weather pretty much curtailed that. But we've been working on this report. Again, you have the information in front of you, and it is kind of snowy out tonight. Some of the strengths, so the library media specialists all at every building work cooperatively with all the teachers, and help in planning materials and things. And there are some, on the second to last page, the strengths listed there. But again, I think in every building they go above and beyond trying to help with the staff. Some of the concerns they had, in the years in past reviews, they've talked about space limitations. We had a discussion that really we can't do anything with that space limitations. I mean, because a lot of our libraries are landlocked where they're at, and so it would be a high dollar item, and so we took that out of the review. But they did want me to bring up the last recommendation about the loss of LMS extended contract days. They've been decreased over the last few years. ECC does not even have any for the library media there, and so that's just a recommendation or something to think on as we move forward with that. Any questions?
Didn't we discuss that LMS days at some point? It may have been after the start of this, this contract year, but has that not been on our radar, or am I just making?
I couldn't hear.
things up?
What did you discuss? What, Chris?
The LMS days issue that you're.
Not to my knowledge this year. It might have been in the past, but I don't recall it.
Remember, as those days started decreasing, was it in the last 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years? You kind of have a timeline?
Probably 3. I think it was within the last 3 years. They've gone down 3 to 4. What?
It wasn't back when we did the budget cuts?
Was it the budget cuts?
I think
so.
I don't
Okay.
believe we.
When was that? You remember?
It was 2010.
Oh, okay.
2010.
Yeah, I don't. According to them, I didn't think it had been that long, but I'd have to look into it. I
Yeah,
could certainly do that for you.
I could look some things
I was
up
just
on
curious.
Yeah.
I just don't recall us taking.
Yeah.
that. Yeah, other than that budget cut.
And maybe I may be remembering it from 2010. I remember that.
Time flies and you have fun.
Yeah,
Just feels like a couple of years ago, doesn't it?
I do have one question that just curiosity. I've been reading through this the other day, and I can't find it now. But there was we were talking about parties and events and stuff that the library folks do, and there was a banned book party. What is a banned book party? Just
I do
does
not
anybody
know.
Books that have been banned through history
Oh.
that aren't banned today. Obviously, we don't have banned books.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Right.
I was
they
thinking
would have
band,
those
B A
books,
N
and
D.
They would just kind of read about them, talk about the cultural impact of these books, the historical aspects of them.
It's interesting.
Okay,
That's interesting.
cool. I like that.
I thought you meant B-A-N-D.
No,
band.
B-A-N-N-E-D.
The
It
band
caught
kids
my
are getting
eye
together.
here the other day. And I was like,
Thank
really,
you.
we're still banning
Thank you,
books,
Dan.
huh?
I'm pretty sure it was during the budget cuts in 2010.
That's kind of what I had assumed, but I
We
would. That's why I
reduced all the days by 30 to 50%.
Okay, now I think we'll move on to the C6.
So, and for the interest of time, I'm just going to remind everybody, March 5th, we're going to have the community meeting where we're going to talk about finance and budget and really start getting into the comprehensive school improvement process. So that'll be in the high school.
Do you know where exactly at the high school? Like just which door to go in?
Library.
The library. Okay, thank you.
It'll be busy. They're having advisory conferences that night too at the high school, and that's in the cafeteria. Just FYI.
Thank you.
Okay. The adoption of the 2019-20 school calendar start date is more than 10 days prior to the first Monday in September. We need a motion.
I move we approve the 2019-2020 school calendar as presented, which includes a start date which is more than 10 days prior to the first Monday in September.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Tuition rates.
We have 2 tuition rates to recommend this evening. The first is for K-8 students who come to our high school. That is a $150 increase. We still are well below what our cost per pupil is, per pupil expenditure. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. And then the tuition rate for the Cass Career Center is recommended to remain the same for the school year. So next school year.
So do we give Eastland a discount then from what normally would be?
Well, we don't charge tuition to other students, so we're not a tuition accepting. So if a student who lived in Peculiar School District wanted to come to Harrisonville, we would not allow that. We don't accept tuition. The only reason that we accept it from East Lynn is because they are a K-8 school district. So yes, we charge them. We give them a discount comparatively to our per pupil expenditure.
Okay, so that's the $988.87 is what it cost, but we're only charging them the $776. Okay.
Because they still have some expenses they incur too, and
Correct.
transportation,
Yeah.
liability, and things like
Right.
that.
We don't
too,
go
so.
pick them up; they bring them here.
Correct.
Okay.
Paul or Kathy one. I'm just curious what Pleasant Hill charges them, because they have 3 schools that they divide their students
You know
into,
what?
or they have
I
the
can
option.
probably find that out for you. 'Cause
It's not that important. I was just kind of curious
it's
if we
still
were.
less than where they're at. I know
Is it
that.
less than
Yeah,
them?
because I talked to John about that the other day. So.
And then how many students do we currently get from East Lynn? Do we get a lot?
I think
from
we get
East
the
Lynn?
majority of the
We
students.
do. So I know that, for example, I asked John, their superintendent, for next year, the 8th grade class coming in. There's 12 students. 11 of them are projected to come to Harrisonville. So that's pretty common. So
They have 3 schools to choose from, right?
Mhm.
Strasburg,
P-Hill, Sherwood,
P Hill.
West.
No, Strasburg, I think.
Strasburg? Strasburg's just K.
Oh, is it
K.
Sherwood?
It'd have to be
Okay,
Sherwood.
sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah, P.L. Sherwood.
Strasburg still had
Oh,
a
we
K.
thought- yeah.
Wow.
I had it in my head
That's
there was
funny.
Strasburg. You're right, they are K.
Okay, we need a motion.
Pleasant Hill.
Yeah, it's Pleasant
I
Hill.
move to approve the tuition rates as presented for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Board policy revision.
This is the massive updates sent by MSBA. So this is the first
The
leading.
informational.
Yeah, this is the informational.
I had one question on one, and it's IC, and it's the policy on the academic calendar, and it mentions, and I'm not exactly sure, I have to look it up exactly where, but it mentions a school term, the term may be within a school year or may consist of parts of 2 consecutive school years. So when they talk about a school term, when would you use the school term over parts of 2 consecutive years? I guess was my, and I'm sure this is MSB wordage. I was just wanting clarification.
I'm not sure on that.
Let's see if I can find. And it's something, we can. I'm just curious. You can look at it later, and it was one of the ones that were in yellow.
It might be in reference to, there's some school district, is it on the makeup
Oh, here it is.
policy?
It's on it's on the first. It's on the 3rd page. It's titled reference copy, and it's in the 2nd paragraph.
Policy, is it, which policy? Is it IC?
IC.
Okay.
IC, page 3.
School term may be within.
Yeah, a school term. It's the 2nd paragraph,
Oh,
2nd
got it.
sentence.
It's the highlighted.
For a school year.
I guess maybe if they use the word term and it's a student that finishes up the credits for their junior year in the middle of. Yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of curious when that would.
I know that other people are confused by it though too, because there were some people, they sent out clarification. There's some people that think you can make up your hours in the following school year, and you can't do that. So I know that's a point of clarification. So I think there's other people confused by the same verbiage.
I have another one to write down. The other question I had, I'm just curious, and then you probably won't know until next year, but changing from days to hours, is that going to be a paperwork nightmare? Or, I mean,
It can be.
so like if you cancel school or you release school early 2 hours, then you only have to make those 2 hours up?
Well, no, okay. So on early release days, you're fine because we're still over the
Oh, that's right,
1,044.
that's right.
So early release days or late start days, we'd be fine. Where it's going to get you is, let's say we miss one school day. You have to make that up. Even though you're over the 1,044, you still have to make up the one school day.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to build that in and not use a recovery day or a grade out area, you can do that by adding a certain. I mean, you could add 15 minutes to the end of the day, or 15 minutes at the beginning of the day, or 10 or 5, or however the calculation works out. That's where it's going to be a problem, because Kathy's going to have to go in there and mess with that and get it to.
Yeah, Kathy.
Nope,
The
Sanchez.
other Kathy.
Yeah, the other. Not me.
But if you have early
I don't want anything
release
to do with
now,
that.
and it's after 1 o'clock or whatever, we count it for whole day. But if you're counting hours instead of days, it still counts for whole day.
Do they still have the minimum 4 hours to count
They
for
still
next
have,
year?
it's what I've read. It's still
Okay.
It's a minimum of 4 hours
minimum
to
of
count
4
as
hours.
a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with that.
It's like 6 innings, isn't it?
We keep having winners like this. It won't matter.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the HHS trip to Switzerland and France.
Well, I think we need a motion.
I move to approve the
Correct.
the HHS.
EF trip
Thank you. EF
to Switzerland.
to Switzerland and France. As presented.
It's computer
What
went
would
to
we
sleep.
do without Susan?
Oh, that's all.
Close button right as I was.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, my question is this. If this trip is not linked to our schools in any official way, as this letter states, why does the board have to approve it? If it's not,
I
Put on
think
by-
it's because they're our kids, and we're providing the classroom, and we're providing the. It's similar to, let's say I was doing a dissertation which would involve research on our students. I would have to request that permission, and so it's a similar type of situation. You're gonna. I don't know.
it's our students and our teachers, but it's not here. And we're not involved in any of the travel or the planning or any of it, but yet we have to approve it. I guess I'm just wondering what.
I think we're allowing access to our students. That's
Oh.
why.
Oh, okay.
My understanding. So.
And don't they have some preliminary meetings here? I know we attended one with our
Right.
daughter a few years ago. Yeah, it looked, smelled, and felt to us like a school function, even though
It's
it
not.
really wasn't.
Well, it says
But
that
they get some additional high school
Credit,
and
yeah.
college credit, right?
If they do extra
option.
work.
If they do the work.
Yeah,
So that'd
which
be
is
through
good.
us.
I would just
Well, we
wasn't
wouldn't provide the credit. There's an
No.
institution that would provide the
Oh,
credit.
okay.
We can
Through this other
transcript
outfit.
it. We can transcript it, sure. But
Okay, well that I was like, I don't understand why they need the board's approval.
Should we attach a board member to this trip?
Oh, did you want to go big?
I'm thinking Nancy down here.
No, I
you
do
know.
not want to go.
you want to pay your money? You
Communication
can welcome to
director would
go.
love to do it.
If it was a Caribbean trip, I would.
you all have never
Okay.
supervised
Not
kids
with
that
high
aren't
school
your own
students.
on trips out of the country, have you? You probably wouldn't be volunteering.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
We've got a motion and a second. We need to vote.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Addition to the girls' C team soccer coach position.
Can I ask something real quick? She asked for 4G, which also, so I didn't know
Did
if
not
maybe
show
get
up.
that added onto the.
Yeah,
We moved
it's
it
now
to
9C.
Oh.
Move things around on
Different type of service.
Didn't
Good eye, though. That was a good eye.
Let's clear up on
Good catch.
Question before we talk about.
Oh, yep.
this.
We'll need a motion. Thank you for
it.
keeping that.
Make the motion to approve the addition of a girls C team soccer coach beginning with the 2018-19 school year.
Second.
So this is a request by the soccer program. Came through the athletic director, then to me. In the past, probably last year, there was a volunteer coach. I'm not sure how many years that goes back, but at least last year there was a volunteer coach to coach those kids. We do have enough kids for a C team. However, with our current concern over revenues, I don't feel like it's prudent to add a coaching stipend. We did add a coaching stipend for girls wrestling because it was an additional program to separate kids that we currently had. So we would so it was a Title IX concern at that point. We're limiting the program. Girls can still play soccer. So it's my recommendation that we not add that position.
So we'd still have an A team and a B team. So we'd still
There'd
have-
be a JV team and a varsity team, correct?
this would be the third team, but basically the.
And we just wouldn't have that team.
Right.
And is the C team the students that have tried out for the and didn't make the A or the
A
B?
lot of times it's freshmen. For example,
Yeah.
the boys basketball C team this year was all freshmen. So it's if you don't have enough freshmen, or if maybe a freshman moves up, then you can call this the C team. Sometimes you have sophomores playing on the C team.
Are there enough districts that have C teams where you can schedule games for the C teams of sports?
We've had it before, so I know that there's like
It just seems like that's a lot of
7 contests typically after
lot of
2
teams.
months.
Okay.
What's the cost of the stipend for the coach?
We hadn't set that, so that would have to be set with that recommendation. So
Well, would they have the same stipend as the A or the B coach, or would it be less because it's a C?
typically it's the same as assistant. It'd be another assistant position. So
And if we've had a volunteer coach in the past, is that not an option for this year?
that person is not available, I believe. Is that right, Jason?
I don't think so, but I don't know for sure.
Do the boys have a C team? The boys soccer coach, do they have a C team?
They didn't pay, we never paid C coach. No.
Do we, and the numbers sustain the ability to have a seat, or we don't know yet?
It's projected that we would. Yes, have enough.
Yeah, it's not in our salary
Right.
schedule, so
It'd
we'd
have to
have
be-
to figure.
What's the JV position pay?
Hold on. This
Yep.
boys is the same. Well, it depends on how many years of experience.
Just
3096 is the base.
3,096
Is the base.
is the base.
And so it says school year 2018 to 19. Does that mean they start right away?
They would start this spring because girls soccer is a spring sport, so we're coming into it right now.
So
Do we have anybody in mind, or they're requesting this, so they must have somebody maybe?
It's not something that's been budgeted for this year.
Right.
And the stipend is roughly 3,000. It sounds like we'd also then incur transportation and equipment costs. I would imagine.
Officials.
And I mean, it could be more than that if they.
Right. It depends on the years of experience.
So 3,096 up to 4,096.
Okay, did we make a motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Generally, when I recommend when we start talking about budget cuts, I look at not eliminating programs for kids, but if we can reduce but still offer those opportunities, then that's where I will take that.
And based on the outlook by Mr. Moody, there's not a lot of extra money that's going to be available next year, it doesn't look like, from the state that we rely on. We don't know how that would affect the formula.
Well, and as we've been talking for the last 6 or 8 months about our declining enrollment, I think to Paul's point, do we want to add a lot of new stuff? Because unless enrollment does some sort of magical turnaround, funding's going to go with enrollment, or some of it.
But if we don't put this coach position in, then the girls can't play then, right?
They can play JV if they make the team. It might mean that they have to cut or
Increase their team size.
right.
They could increase the size, I would think, a little bit.
Right.
May not have as much playing opportunity per se.
So you say we have enough for a C team. How many does that count? Is it?
There's 11 girls or 11 kids on a soccer team. So that's without substitutions. On the field at one time, there's 11.
And we've got that many girls interested in soccer that we could have another team. This C team.
That's the thought. Yeah.
Soccer's a growing sport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We need to vote.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
All opposed?
Okay. Please and thank you.
Roll call vote.
Nancy.
No.
Doug.
No.
Bing.
Yes.
Tina.
No.
Chris.
No.
Gina.
No.
Doug.
I'm gonna vote no.
Thank you.
Okay. Business services, bids for visitor management system.
So, this,
I'll make the
Yeah.
motion to
Sorry,
award the visitor
sorry.
management entry system contract to Raptor Technologies in the amount of $9,600 for year one, with an annual subscription fee of $3,240 per year for years 2 and 3.
Second.
sorry. Thank you, Bing. So this is something that I guess has come out of the safety committee a little bit, how we can improve safety for our students, and the visitor management system monitors picture IDs, primarily driver's licenses, government identification, and also people who are on our lists for no contact, and flags them from coming into our buildings. It actually probably didn't need to be bid. I didn't know how much the cost was going to be, but looking at the end result, the cost is less than the bid threshold, so we could have just done the quotes. But we had a committee looking at the different management systems, and Raptor was the one that the committee recommended of those that we interviewed or watched their webinars. It's a good system. Raypec uses it. They just got it last fall. We had a team go to Raypec today to look at it. They liked it. And it's a web-based system, which was a plus for our technology. So the committee included a board member, included we had an attendance secretary. We had see who all was on it. Technology was represented. We had teaching staff. So we had a wide variety of people on the committee to review which one was the best. So
Did you contact any of the other schools that were listed as references that have had the system in for a couple of years?
North Kansas City.
Let's see. I talked to Excelsior Springs, but I don't know that they're using this one. I talked to some that are using different ones to get a variety of opinion on the different ones that we looked at.
Mm-hmm. I would just like to, well, we've already made the motion, but I was going to say I would like to hear from a school district that's had it in place for a couple of years and
Was
see
Raypec? Was Raypec one that had it in place? They used Raptor?
They just went.
Oh, they just went to it. Okay.
Raypec did go visit North Kansas City when they made their decision to go to it.
Okay.
And Park Hill also.
And this is for all facilities.
Well, not this. The bid is only for the buildings themselves. It's not for the central office.
Okay.
So Wildcat Academy, ECC, through high school, Career Center, middle
I
school.
don't think we put Wildcat
Not
Academy because
Wildcat.
it's
They
not
don't
an
have
outside.
outside
They don't have
visitors.
outside visitors.
Oh, okay, okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just curiosity question on that. Was there, and Bing, I think you were on that committee, weren't you? The bid range is pretty wide here. There's one at 36 grand versus 9,600. Was it feature rich or was it just more expensive for the same thing?
You know, and that's the thing is this one had more features and was less expensive than some of the ones
Really?
that were more expensive, and people were going, well, that's
Okay.
that's crazy because they were asking, and they're like, where's this button and where's that button that the Raptor system had, and they didn't have that, and they're like, well, do you have a picture of the a fender that comes through the email, and they were like, no, we don't have that. But the Raptor system will let you know through an email alert who the person is that's trying to get in or that's banned. And it was just amazing that this was the cheapest one and the best one. You know, I sent through, how many of those, four or five, Paul, hour-long plus presentations. So it was interesting to see them all.
Well, I was impressed. I just read the information on the one we just approved, but I was impressed with a lot of it, particularly some of the development costs. You know, API interfaces for $100 versus CLI, I think, was free. But anyway,
and it checks for the sex predators through the register. It checks through, child custody. Yeah.
Well, the great thing about it is the system is that if you have a sub sitting in that attendant secretary desk, they don't, a lot of our attendant secretaries know who those parents are that can't. A lot of them do. And especially at the younger levels, I think. But you have a sub sitting there, which we do sometimes. They don't necessarily know, and you'd have to look it up, and then I think this is a great thing. I'm glad we're doing it.
So when will it be installed for next school year?
We're going to get it in as soon as we can get trained on it.
Oh,
so, as soon as we can get it in, we will.
Good.
Do we need to? I guess the answer is probably going to be yes. But as I understand it, there's six licenses, but we have to provide the hardware apart from the scanners and stuff. I guess
just the computers.
Okay, so do we need to? Is that in our technology?
We already have it. Yeah, they've got it. So they're going to use Chrome touchscreen Chromebooks. I think is what they talked about. What Jesse said. So.
Okay.
We also, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, have the printers already, the Dynamo printers.
That's a good point. Yeah, we do have some of the Dynamo printers. The high school uses them, I think, already. So some of the hardware we already have.
And we didn't have to purchase the other system's hardware in order to be compatible.
Good.
Okay, we're going to move on to bid for McEwen water main replacement.
Yay.
We need a motion.
Move to authorize the administration to contract with Powers Trenching and Excavating in the amount of $27,887 to replace the water main at McEwen Elementary School.
Second.
So this is the water main we've had trouble with. We've had 2 breaks on the water main so far this year, and Mr. Powers has been out to help both times, did an exceptional job. His bid, this is one of those cases where you can take the lowest bid, and the difference between the 2 bids, lowest bid was about $87. But the reason that we would recommend the higher bid of $87 more in this case is because of the familiarity with the project already. Mr. Powers has already been down there and worked and knows exactly where the problems are, where to attach. His stuff is there. So it's not like we don't appreciate the other vendors, because we do, and we use them for other things. It's just this particular job he's very familiar with. So we would recommend the bid that is a little bit more in this case.
And is it going to replace every...
It's going to replace the water line from the building all the way to the meter itself. So
it's our meter, which is about 150 feet of line. It's not where the shutoff is. The shutoff actually for that is on the block adjacent. So there's still another, I would say, at least double that, if not more, probably 500 more. Feet of our line from that meter to the main shutoff.
We haven't had a problem with that yet.
No, but we're going to go ahead and add a gate valve just outside of the building, so that we can isolate the main in the building without having to call the city and go a block away. That's part of the scope of this work.
Okay, and that was the point I was trying to ask here, is that we've done one replacement of a section that went bad, which then the next section went bad, so it seems like there's a domino effect happening with this.
But that's all the whole line we're taking out. So that both those sections were within the same line that we're removing.
Okay.
So
it should fix the problem is what I'm asking.
It'll fix it for 150
It's plumbing, Bing. It's
There'll be 150 feet of new line with a gate valve.
Okay.
Whether that'll
we're
fix any
replacing the
problem
whole thing.
or
We're
not,
trying to put a Band-Aid on it and then
No, we've
water
been-
pops out of this
we've
pipe
been
over
putting-
here, and we put a Band-Aid
No,
on it
we've
over
been
here.
putting Band-Aids
Right,
on it.
that's
Now
what-
we're replacing the
Yeah,
whole
we're
line.
Perfect.
What about timeline of summer school and school and?
We're doing spring break.
Oh, spring break,
Yeah.
okay.
And there's some sort of warranty on materials and workmanship and that sort of thing.
But we typically write into the bid. I don't know what it
Yeah, I don't
typically is off the top of my head.
Yeah, but there is. They included it in the
Ground is frozen. Can they work on it?
He dug it when it was frozen last time.
Okay.
It's pretty messy.
The motion was for the water, the maybe I misread it. I think I just found my error. I got confused by the two lines, the site restoration line at the bottom and the,
It just means they have to put sod over it when they're done.
well, right, that's the total including site restoration? We have a bid for 27,887. But then the bottom line on here is the site restoration of 3191.1.
Those are,
Both of them say it.
we asked for an alternate bid.
That was an alternate bid for boring the project versus
Oh, I
trenching
didn't. I
the
missed the
project.
word alternate. I got it now. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And business radio licensing renewal agreement. We need a motion.
I move to approve the business radio license agreement as presented.
Second.
Jason, you want to talk about the radio license agreement?
Yeah. Can you explain this to me, why we are renewing it way before it's due and why we're changing it over to a government category, I guess? I don't even understand. Who broadcasts this?
We have multitude of district radios. This company, for the $90, you have to redo your license every. I'm not an expert by any means, except for when it comes across my desk and I start learning on it.
Right.
You have to renew your license every so often. I believe, I haven't read this for a while, I think it's by 2020. So this came through this company, and what I've read, they'll take care of all that for that $90, and I don't have to do all that paperwork of stack of all of our radios and everything that's going to be done.
So what radios do you mean? If this is broadcasting, what are you talking about?
Bus radio.
Not the bus radio. The bus radios are the
Oh.
bus companies, but it's going to be all of our maintenance radios, all of our buildings.
Those are FCC?
Yes, everything is pretty much. We have a few HES.
I thought we had some little radio station
radios.
somewhere I didn't know about.
No,
This
I was
is
thinking it was
for
the Sonic locker room.
Don't feel
whatever
bad.
it was.
after 9/11. They redid a lot of laws
I was thinking
with
it was the
what
Sonic locker
wave bands you can utilize for all that kind of stuff, and the FCC regulates that. And when I
Okay.
called this fall to look at some bus radios, I kind of got an inkling that our radios were not up to where they need to be. Now through this, I found out they are, but they still have to be renewed. That license has to be renewed. That this is our.
So this outfit takes care of all the paperwork.
They're going to do it for $90 or whatever. I don't know anything about it, and they'll
And you
take
know
care of
they're
it. And
gonna
they'll
do
make
it.
sure that we're up to par, so that they don't fine us up to $10,000.
So
for
did you
radio
check
per
this? I
day
know
or
you
something.
checked this outfit out.
Yeah, online, and I've called and talked to them a
Okay,
little bit.
because
So.
anybody can say they do stuff.
Well, but this became an issue a few years ago when they changed the cell phone frequencies. So the government widened the band of frequency that cell phone companies could use, which narrowed the band of the bus radios and all those kind of radios. And so schools had to go in and check them and make sure that the licenses were. So it's a continual thing to make sure you're not operating outside that narrow band. So.
Gosh, well, who knew? Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we need a motion to adjourn.
Move it to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?